Down in Chicago's train yards, they'll tell you the rail deaths are just accidents. But do you believe that? Or could something pale, twisted, and hungry be pulling bodies onto the tracks when no one's watching? And out at Rend Lake, sure, the surface looks calm, but what really stirs beneath? Would you dare drop a line knowing those black waters hide more than fish? And those men posted on the shore, are they really protecting you? Or are they protecting whatever's lurking in the depths? So tell me, do you still think these are just stories? Or are you ready to find out what happens when secrets won't stay buried? Welcome to Weird Encounters, a place where the ordinary fades into shadow and the unexplainable comes alive. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and become part of our ever-growing community of the curious. A Chicago Transit Authority worker reveals the truth about rail accidents. He says the trains aren't what kill people in the yards. It's something pale, inhuman, that hunts people in the dark. My name is Leonard. For almost 25 years, I worked the night shift with the CTA in Chicago, maintaining trains, fixing track issues, cleaning after accidents. I always preferred nights. Fewer people around, fewer supervisors breathing down your neck, and you could get the work done with only the sound of the city rumbling above. But night shifts also meant I saw the things no one else wanted to deal with. I've been first on scene for suicides, found bodies split in half on the rails, picked up scattered pieces with a shovel when trains didn't stop in time. Most people don't know how often it happens. The news will mention a service disruption or a medical emergency, but they won't tell you someone was crushed into paste under 30 tons of steel. After so many years, I thought nothing could shake me anymore. But last winter I saw why those deaths keep happening, and it wasn't the trains. It was something else. It was late December, cold enough that the ballast gravel was frozen stiff under my boots. I was assigned to Howard Yard up north. Rows and rows of CTA cars sat in the dark, only a few floodlights casting yellow cones across the steel. The yard always feels different at night. Empty, echoing, the kind of silence that makes you feel like you're being watched from between the cars. I'd walked those rows 1,000 times, checking brake systems, logging problems, swapping out couplers. It should have been routine. But that night felt wrong from the start. The radios hissed with static, even though the channel was clear. Twice I thought I heard a train horn when there shouldn't have been one. My flashlight beam kept catching movement between the cars, but when I swung it around, there was nothing there. I told myself it was rats. Big ones, maybe, but rats all the same. Around midnight, I heard a scream. Short, high, cut off. It came from the far end of the yard. I thought maybe a transient had slipped in. It happened often enough, people looking for warmth in the cars. I started toward the sound, boots crunching loud in the cold. My breath hung in the air, white plumes catching the floodlight glow. That's when I saw him. A man staggered between the rails, waving his arms, eyes wide like he was being chased. His clothes were ragged, soaked from the snow. He screamed again, and I saw the shadow behind him. It was tall, hunched, wrong, too thin, too pale. Its arms hung nearly to the ground, legs bending at angles that didn't belong on anything alive. The head tilted almost upside down, a neck stretched too far, the jaw yawning open. The sound it made wasn't a growl or a roar. It was the shriek of metal grinding on metal, brakes locking on steel wheels. The sound ripped through me, made my teeth hurt. The man screamed and ran. The thing was faster. It blurred forward on all fours, pale limbs flashing, and hooked him with one claw. I swear it lifted him like he weighed nothing. He flailed, begged, kicked, then a horn blasted down the line. A train's headlights flared to life, blinding white. The man shrieked as the thing dragged him onto the tracks. The horn kept blaring, brakes screeching so loud I thought my ears would bleed. The car thundered forward, smashing into both of them. I staggered back, covering my face. But when I looked again, the headlights were gone. The cars were dark. They'd been unpowered all night. I knew that for a fact. That section wasn't connected. There was no body, no blood, nothing. Just silence and steam rising off the rails. I wanted to run, to get the hell out of there, but my legs wouldn't move. Then the sound came again. A screech, metal on metal. But this time it came from behind me. I spun, my light trembling in my hands. The beam caught something pale ducking between cars, too fast to see clearly. I started backing up, heart hammering, breath coming hard. Then it came again, closer. The screech of brakes echoing right in my ear. I ran. The yard turned into a maze. Cars loomed on both sides, shadows twisting as I sprinted. My boots slipped on ice, hands scraping metal as I weaved between the trains. The screeches followed, blasting so loud I thought the whole city must hear it. But no one came. No one ever came. Once I saw it running alongside me in the reflection of a car window. Pale, hunched, its limbs slamming the gravel, head cocked to the side, eyes like black pits. I dropped my light in panic and kept running blind. I rounded a corner and crashed into someone. A coworker, Miguel, another night shift guy. He grabbed me, asking what the hell I was doing. I tried to warn him, tried to drag him with me. But before I could explain, the screech came again. Miguel's face went white. His head snapped toward the sound. He whispered, "Not again." Then the thing dropped on him from the top of a car. It hit him so hard I felt the ground shake. His scream lasted only seconds before it cut off. When I turned back, he was gone. The thing was dragging him under the cars, fast, pale hands scraping sparks on the steel. I bolted. There was only one place I could think to go, the maintenance shed at the edge of the yard. I barreled inside, slammed the door, and threw my weight against it. The darkness pressed heavy around me. My lungs burned. The screech came outside, circling the shed. Then claws raked the walls, sparks flying through the cracks. The whole shed shook. I held the door, praying it would hold. The thing circled for what felt like hours, sometimes slamming the walls, sometimes whispering in that brake-screech voice, dragging metal across the gravel. Then, silence. I don't remember falling asleep, but when I opened my eyes it was daylight. The yard was alive with workers, engines rumbling, radios clear. The shed was untouched. No claw marks, no blood, no Miguel. I tried to ask about him. No one answered. My supervisor told me there was no record he'd been on duty that night. I've counted how many accidents there have been in the last 20 years. Too many to blame on bad luck. Too many people cut short by trains that weren't supposed to move. I don't believe they all jumped. I don't believe they all slipped. I know what really happened. It's not the trains that kill them. It's the thing that makes the trains move. A hunter at Rend Lake swears he saw something no one should ever face, an amphibian nightmare with teeth and a voice that isn't its own. But the real terror? The wardens who already knew it was there. Thank you for giving me a place to send this. I know it's long, but I need to write everything down. My name is Thomas Greeley, and I've hunted these woods and waters since I was a boy. I've walked ridges from Crab Orchard to Sam Dale, but nothing prepared me for what happened last April at Rend Lake. I still can't believe what I saw, and the worst part is how quick the wardens swooped in to shut it down. They didn't even ask what it was. They already knew. It started the second week of April. Turkey season had just opened, and I'd scouted a spot off the South Markham area where the creek beds run into the flooded timber. My friend Kyle Simmons came with me. He's 49, a machinist from Mount Vernon, and he's hunted with me every spring for 20 years. He's level-headed, doesn't spook easy, and doesn't exaggerate. That's why I know I'm not crazy. We launched the boat in the dark, a flat bottom with a trolling motor, and headed up a side channel. The morning fog was thick, curling low over the water, and the only sounds were our paddles and the distant slap of carp. Half a mile in, the woods changed. No birdsong, no frogs. Even the water felt stiller, like the whole place was holding its breath. I whispered, "You hear that?" Kyle said, "Hear what?" I said, "Exactly. It's just way too quiet." We then beached the boat and set up by a ridge that sloped down into flooded brush. I let out a soft yelp call, expecting a gobble. Nothing. Just dead silence. That's when we found the first sign. A sycamore tree stood 20 feet tall, its bark stripped off in ragged chunks nearly 10 feet up. Not claw marks, whole sheets peeled away, like something had rubbed against it. On the ground beneath it was a half-eaten fish, but the bones were crushed lengthwise, not chewed. The spine was twisted like rope. Kyle muttered, "Coyote didn't do that." I nodded. My stomach tightened. We pressed deeper, hoping to shake the unease. 20 minutes later, I heard a hen yelp. Short, sharp, close. I whispered, "Finally," and raised my shotgun. But then it repeated. Exactly the same pitch, same rhythm, same 3 notes. Over and over, like a recording stuck on loop. Kyle gave me a look. "That ain't right." I motioned him to stay low. We crept forward, and that's when I saw it. Behind a stand of buttonbush, half submerged in the creek, something rose. At first I thought it was a man in waders. Then it stepped higher, and my brain locked. It was 8 feet tall, skin the color of wet slate, glistening with a sheen like oil. Its torso was broad, ribs showing under the hide, arms long and jointed wrong at the elbows. Along its spine were bony ridges, sharp like fins. Its head was flat, wide, with no nose, just 2 narrow slits above a mouth full of needlepoint teeth, and its eyes, milky white, lidless, staring without blinking. It stood still, chest heaving, water dripping down its sides. Then its throat bulged, and that fake turkey yelp rattled out of it again. Perfect. Exact. The thing turned its head toward us. I swear it smiled. Not human, not animal. Just teeth, stretched too wide. I should have fired, but my hands wouldn't move. It tilted its head, then slid back into the water without a sound. We stayed frozen until the ripples died. I whispered, "We're leaving." Kyle nodded fast. We hustled back to the boat, but the path wasn't the same. The water level had risen, fast and unnatural, like the creek had swelled in minutes. Our trail in was gone, drowned. We tried another way, slogging through knee-deep water, but the mud sucked hard. Every step felt like we'd sink deeper. That's when the smell hit. Wet moss mixed with copper. It burned my throat. Then, ahead of us, the reeds shook. Something heavy moved parallel, matching our pace. We couldn't see it, but we felt it. Proximity dread. Every step we took, it took. Branches creaked. Water splashed. Kyle said, "It's circling us." I gripped my shotgun tighter, my heart pounding. We reached a shallow ridge and scrambled up. Behind us, water surged, like something massive had slipped under. The ripples spread wide, far wider than any beaver or deer. We didn't stop until we reached the boat, and that's when the wardens showed up. 2 white state trucks idled at the ramp, logos on the doors. The men waiting weren't the usual weekend wardens. They wore the uniforms, but their boots were military issue, black and polished. The older one, name tag reading Daniels, asked us, "You fellas doing any good?" I blurted, "There's something in there. Big, and it's not a damn turkey." He didn't blink. He said, "You were in a restricted section. Those channels are off limits for a reason." "Restricted," Kyle said. "This is public hunt ground." The younger warden, silent until then, stepped forward. His hand rested on his sidearm. His jaw was tight, eyes scanning the tree line like he expected that thing to walk right out. Daniels handed me a slip. It was a citation for unauthorized access. He said to me, "You'll pay the fine and move on. You didn't see anything else." I opened my mouth to argue, but the younger one cut me off. "Sir, best thing you can do is forget it." We left, but I couldn't let it go. 3 nights later, against my better judgment, I went back, alone this time. I parked further down and hiked in on foot. The woods were darker than they should have been. Clouds smothered the moon. I moved slow, light off, shotgun in hand. That's when I found the second sign. A line of deer carcasses, half submerged in a slough, their heads torn clean off. The bodies weren't eaten, just stacked, one on top of the other like cordwood. In the mud nearby, I saw impressions, 3-toed, webbed, each print the size of a dinner plate. I snapped a photo on my phone. The second I did, I heard it, the reed breath sound. Long, rattling, like air forced through wet leaves. I turned, and I saw it standing 20 yards away, chest deep in the water. Its eyes glowed pale in the beam. It opened its mouth, and my own voice came out. It said, "We're leaving." My stomach turned to ice. It lunged forward, water exploding. I fired once, then again. The blasts lit it up, gray flesh tearing but not stopping. It barreled through the shallows, faster than any man could run. I spun and bolted. The ground gave way beneath me, a flooded ditch sucking me under. Cold water filled my waders, dragging me down. I thrashed, choking, certain I'd drown. Then a hand grabbed my arm. Kyle. He'd followed me after all. He yanked me free, but my leg twisted hard. Pain shot up my knee. We limped together, the creature splashing behind. At the ridge, our way out was blocked. One of the warden trucks, headlights off, parked sideways across the trail. 2 figures stood in front, rifles slung. They didn't aim at the creature. They aimed at us. Daniels barked, "Drop it." "Now," Kyle shouted. "It's right behind us." Daniels shook his head. "You don't need to see it twice." The younger warden fired a flare into the air. The creature stopped dead, 40 yards back, half in the water. It hissed, deep and furious. Then it sank down, gone in seconds. Daniels lowered his rifle. "You were never here." They escorted us out, never explaining, never acknowledging what we'd seen. The tickets disappeared. Our names never showed in court records, like none of it had happened. But I know what I saw, what I heard. That thing is real, and they're keeping it contained. In the Shawnee National Forest of Illinois, a surveyor claims he uncovered something terrifying in an abandoned bunker. A creature locked in cages, a door that opened on its own, and a night that nearly ended in death. Hi, my name is Daniel Price, and I was born in Carbondale, Illinois, and I've spent my whole life in southern Illinois. I work as a surveyor for a small engineering firm that handles county contracts, mostly boundary checks, floodplain measurements, and land assessments. I've done work all over the Shawnee National Forest. I know those woods better than most people. This happened in April of last year, near Garden of the Gods, on the eastern side of the forest. The county asked us to verify property markers on land that bordered old mining grounds. They suspected squatters or illegal dumping, and we were supposed to map the boundaries and log anything unusual. My partner that day was a guy named Carl Simmons, 56, out of Harrisburg. Carl is a veteran, Army Corps of Engineers. He's solid, practical, and doesn't scare easy. But what we saw out there shook him so bad he refuses to ever go back. We parked off Carber's Ridge Road in the early afternoon. The weather was overcast, wind moving through the trees with a steady hiss. The land we were checking stretched into a dense patch of hardwoods and ravines. We carried GPS units, notebooks, and sidearms. In Shawnee, you don't worry about people so much as feral hogs or coyotes. At first, it was routine. We logged a few boundary points, checked a stream bed, marked erosion. Then Carl spotted something on a rock face that made him stop cold. It was a symbol carved deep into the sandstone, a triangle inside a circle, surrounded by smaller notches like teeth. The edges were sharp, not worn by weather. It looked fresh. We made notes but kept moving. A few hundred yards further, we found a burned-out campsite. The fire pit was filled with blackened bones, bigger than deer, and charred metal fragments. Some looked like old mining equipment. One piece still had a government inventory tag half melted onto it. Carl muttered that it wasn't right. He wanted to report it immediately, but we had to finish the loop first. That's when the forest went silent. No birds, no bugs, just wind. We pressed on. Around dusk, we reached a ravine with a narrow trail winding down. At the bottom was a concrete structure half buried in dirt. It looked like an old storm shelter or access bunker. The door was steel, dented, but not locked. We should have left. But Carl insisted on checking for trespassers. Inside was a corridor leading into darkness. Our lights cut across stained walls and rusted pipes. The air was heavy, metallic. About 20 feet in, we found something that stopped us. A line of cages built into the wall. Heavy iron bars, rusted but intact. Each cage was big enough to hold a man. Most were empty, but one wasn't. Inside, slumped in the corner, was a figure. At first I thought it was a corpse. The skin was gray and stretched tight, the limbs too long, the head narrow with deep eye sockets. But then it moved. Its eyes opened, catching the beam of my light. They glowed faint orange, like embers. It made no sound, but it gripped the bars with hands that ended in hooked claws. I backed up, but Carl stepped closer. He whispered that it wasn't human. The thing leaned forward, pressing its face between the bars. Its mouth opened, rows of sharp, uneven teeth glistening. The smell that hit us was like wet rust and soil dug too deep. Then the cage door swung open. It didn't creak. It didn't grind. It just opened, slow and steady, like it had been waiting. Carl fired his pistol. The shot slammed into its chest, but it didn't fall. It jerked back, then lunged forward on all fours, faster than I thought possible. We ran. The corridor twisted, and we lost our bearings. Behind us, claws scraped the concrete, fast and steady. At one intersection, the floor gave way beneath me. I dropped into a shaft, half filled with water. My light went out, plunging me into blackness. I clawed my way onto a ledge, coughing, soaked. Carl reached down to pull me up, but the thing was there. Its shadow filled the tunnel mouth, its eyes burning in the dark. I swear to you, it smiled. Carl dragged me up and we bolted. We found a stairwell leading up to a rusted hatch. It was sealed. No way out. That was the trap. The thing was coming. We heard its claws on the steps, slow, deliberate. It wanted us cornered. Carl shoved his shoulder into the hatch again and again. On the third hit, it gave way, and cold night air rushed in. We scrambled out onto the forest floor. The hatch slammed shut behind us. We didn't wait. We ran through the woods, not stopping until we saw the truck's headlights. Back in town, Carl told me never to mention it. He said people would think we were crazy, or worse. He refused to file his part of the report. Mine just said we found an unsafe structure, sealed it, and marked it condemned. But I know what I saw. That wasn't a squatter. That wasn't a wild animal. That thing was caged underground for a reason, and someone, maybe the government, maybe worse, put it there. An Illinois building inspector says he uncovered something terrifying in an abandoned meatpacking plant. He claims it wasn't just bones or markings on the walls, but a towering predator that hunted him and his partner. Listen and decide for yourself. Hello, my name is Mark Ellison. I'm 55 years old, born in Rockford, and I've lived in Illinois all my life. For the last 12 years, I've been working as a building inspector for Peoria County. Most of my job is checking condemned properties, old warehouses, or farmhouses that have fallen into disrepair. I've seen plenty of dangerous places, sagging roofs, asbestos, mold so thick it makes your eyes burn. But nothing prepared me for what happened last fall. I debated for months before writing this. Everyone I've told either laughs it off or avoids me. My co-worker that was with me that night won't talk about it at all. He's back on light duty now, but I don't think he'll ever set foot in another inspection site again. I wouldn't either, if I could afford to quit. This started on October 12th, out near Glassford, south of Peoria. There's an abandoned meatpacking plant just off Highway 24 that's been sitting since the mid-90s. The county had complaints about squatters, so we were sent out to confirm if the building was secure enough for the sheriff to post no trespassing orders. My partner that night was Eric, 42, a new hire. He was smart but nervous, and he always carried too many tools, flashlights, extra batteries, even a carpenter's hammer strapped to his belt. He said old places made him uneasy. We parked our truck by the access road around 8 p.m. The sun was gone, and the whole site sat under a pale half-moon. The factory was a sprawling brick structure with broken windows, rusted silos, and tall grass swallowing the lot. You could smell the damp from 50 feet away. The front doors were chained, so we circled to the loading docks. One of the dock doors was bent enough to squeeze under. Inside was colder than outside, the air heavy with mold and iron. Every footstep echoed too long. We started the routine, flashlights sweeping, checking walls, making notes. At first it was just the usual decay. Rotting pallets, stripped wires, graffiti on the walls. But then we started finding things that didn't make sense. The first was a pile of bones near the slaughter line. Not animal bones. Not human either. They were too long, curved in ways I'd never seen. Some had ridges, like spines, but twisted. They were stacked carefully in a crate lined with tarps. Eric cursed under his breath and said it was probably some sick prank. I wanted to believe that, but the bones were heavy when I picked one up. Solid, not fake. The second thing was the noise. We heard it while moving toward the cold storage wing. A dragging shuffle, somewhere down the hall. We froze, lights aimed forward, but saw nothing. Just the peeling paint and black doorway. Eric wanted to leave. I said we had to finish the walkthrough or the report wouldn't hold. So we pressed on. In the storage wing, we found a series of steel doors hanging open. Inside the freezers were strange markings on the walls. Not graffiti. These were etched into the metal, as if something with claws had carved deep grooves into the panels. Some formed patterns that looked almost deliberate, rows of triangles stacked on each other. Eric started taking photos with his phone. That's when we heard the sound again. Closer this time. A scrape, followed by a wet thump. I told him to stay behind me and kept moving toward the end of the hall. The final freezer was darker than the others, the door half closed. As I pulled it open, the stink hit me so hard I gagged. It smelled like wet copper and rotted meat left in summer heat. Inside was a mound of animal carcasses. Deer, dogs, raccoons, all stripped of skin in jagged patches. And on the far wall, more of those claw marks, but deeper. Almost through the steel. We both backed away. Then we heard breathing. Not our own. It came from the dark corner of the freezer, heavy and uneven, like lungs too big for the chest they were in. The thing that stepped out was taller than the doorway. Broad shoulders, matted black hair, and eyes that glowed faint red in the beam of my light. Its mouth hung open, lined with teeth more like shards than molars. Saliva dripped onto the floor, sizzling where it landed, leaving pitted marks in the concrete. I don't know if it was a dogman or something worse. All I know is it looked straight at us and didn't flinch from the lights. Eric dropped his phone. The sound echoed, and that set it off. It lunged. We slammed the freezer door shut, but its claws tore through the metal like cardboard. Sparks flew. We ran, tripping over broken tile, flashlights bouncing. The hallways twisted, and every corner felt like a dead end. At one point, we heard it slam into the wall behind us, the impact shaking dust from the ceiling. Eric's hammer fell from his belt, clattering. He panicked, tried to grab it, but I pulled him along. We ended up in the boiler room. The exit door was chained shut from the outside. We had no way back without facing it. That was the first trap. The thing followed us into the boiler room. Its claws scraped the pipes as it crawled low, forcing its bulk through. I thought we were done until one of the rusted pipes burst under its weight, blasting steam across the room. The cloud hit us for just a moment, enough for us to climb the maintenance ladder to the catwalk above. From there, we found a broken window and crawled onto the roof. The thing didn't follow immediately, but we could hear it pacing below, claws tapping on the steel grates. We thought we were safe until the roof groaned. The metal was rusted through in places. Eric stepped onto a weak patch, and it collapsed. He fell through up to his waist, his legs dangling into the dark. I grabbed him just before the thing leapt. Its claw raked the edge of the hole, inches from his boot. I pulled until my shoulders felt like they'd rip apart, and somehow he came free. We scrambled to the far end of the roof, where a fire escape clung to the wall. Half the rungs were missing, but it was our only way down. We climbed fast, the whole frame rattling. On the ground, we sprinted for the truck. My lungs burned, but I didn't dare stop. Behind us, I swear I saw it crawl onto the roof, silhouetted against the moon, watching us. We got out. We drove all the way back to town without speaking. The next day, I filed my report, leaving out everything about the bones, the markings, the creature. Eric filed nothing. When I pressed him, he told me he didn't remember. He looked me dead in the eye and said there was nothing unusual, just unsafe conditions. He's stuck to that story ever since. But I can't forget. I still see those red eyes in the dark when I close mine. If this reaches you, just remember, the plant is still there. The doors are still open. And whatever that thing was, it's still inside. And so, another strange encounter fades away. A trick of the mind, or something far more unsettling. That's for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching my stories. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going.